All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So it's mid-May, and the New York Jets have still not addressed the backup quarterback position. Currently, the room consists of Zach Wilson, James Morgan, 4th-round pick in last year's draft class, and then, of course, Mike White. In other words, they're young, they're inexperienced, and really just as a unit, as a quarterback room, they haven't seen a lot of NFL football. I mean, in James Morgan and Zach Wilson's case, they played a combined 0 meaningful snaps at the next level, and that includes preseason. Okay, so I can't speak for everybody, but the thought of entering this season with tons of new faces, brand new free agent acquisitions, tons of draft picks, a first-time head coach, a first-time offensive coordinator, a first-time rookie quarterback that was drafted 2nd overall in Zach Wilson, and then a backup quarterback that hasn't even played a single snap, kind of raises a little bit of a red flag for me entering the season. Now, of course, there will be mistakes, there will be growing pains, there will be a learning curve, and that's just what happens. When you have a young team led by a young coaching staff, those things will happen. I'm completely fine with that. But I do feel like adding a veteran backup quarterback to the mix, and this is something that the Jets have done, the last couple of seasons pretty well. I've really liked the guys that they've added. With Josh McCown, I mean, you could go all the way back. Mark Brunell is another guy. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he ended up, taking over for Geno after he got punched. I just feel like the Jets have always locked down that backup veteran presence, and I want that trend to continue as we shift gears into the Robert Saleh era, because let's face it, it doesn't matter what you do in life, whether you work in sales, whether you are a cook, whether you're a student, whenever you have somebody that has taken you under their wing, somebody that you can lean on for advice, somebody that you can come to with questions, it's an extreme benefit, all right? That it's just such a luxury to have that. So let's talk about 5 veteran backup quarterback options that are still out there on the open market that I personally feel like would come in and be Zach Wilson's mentor, be Zach Wilson's Mr. Miyagi. So let's start with the super obvious one first. It's former San Francisco 49er Nick Mullens. Now, we're taking a look at Nick Mullens. On paper, he's like the perfect backup quarterback for the New York Jets right now. I mean, he knows the system, right? He's obviously produced. He's had a couple games where he's looked pretty good, right, for the 49ers. As we all know, Jimmy Garoppolo kind of deals with injuries every single year, so Nick Mullens always has kind of had a shot. Now, he's never lit anybody up. He's never been considered, hey, this guy could be a franchise guy, but I feel like at times he could step in and do an admirable job. He can come in and run the offense. He can possibly score a couple touchdowns. I think he had 12 touchdowns to 12 picks, so obviously not great numbers, but for a backup quarterback being 26 years old and having the overall understanding and knowledge of the system, and being still available, I think this could be a potential pairing here. We're taking a look at Mullens' career so far. I mean, this is a guy who steps into a San Francisco 49er locker room as an undrafted free agent, very complex Kyle Shanahan offensive system in place, and manages to hang around year after year after year after year. That tells me something. That tells me, number one, that Mullens has a great understanding and knowledge of this system, same exact system that will be ran in New York. It tells me he knows how to practice. He knows how to attack the week. He knows how to prepare every single week for the opponent on Sunday and get the starting quarterback ready to go for that matchup. So, all in all, on paper, Nick Mullens makes a ton of sense. The only downside is that Mullens is hurt. He is currently hurt now. The expectation is that he should be good to go for the season, right? He should be 100%, but he's dealing with an injury to the throwing arm, and you never want to be in a situation where you're signing the backup quarterback and he is hurt as well. Let's just say worst case scenario, Zach Wilson goes down week 1 and Nick Mullens is still hurt, and we're going to James Morgan. Great, we're back at square one. So that's the only downside, but all in all, Nick Mullens makes a ton of sense. Next up, another really obvious choice here, Jeff Driscoll, recently released quarterback Jeff Driscoll, I should say, 28 years old. He spent time with the Cincinnati Bengals, the Detroit Lions, and then of course the Denver Broncos. Driscoll's a big-bodied, big-armed quarterback that he can really spin it. Right, super productive at Louisiana Tech. Obviously, it didn't work out at Florida. He was a big-time high school recruit. Again, didn't work out with the Gators, but he goes on and plays with the Bulldogs and lights it up. Later round draft pick. Long story short, Jeff Driscoll has the physical traits to play. He might not fit the system the best, right, because of like the release and everything like that. His play style doesn't really fit the offensive system, but I will say this. If you want a quarterback with a couple of NFL starts under his belt and a guy with a big arm who can push the ball down the field, Driscoll could be your guy. I mean, let's be honest, Driscoll isn't a franchise quarterback. I don't really think he's a starting quarterback in the league, but I definitely feel like he is a solid backup NFL quarterback. I do believe that. It's not like complete ineptitude, almost like how Luke Falk was with the team a couple seasons ago, where it was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. We're getting blown out by, we're losing the game by, 35 points. Nothing insane like that. I do feel like Driscoll at least gives you a shot to win the game. Next up, 30-year-old former USC Trojan Matt Barkley. Now, you're looking at Barkley's career so far, and he's pretty much been a career backup. Never really put together that much on the football field, right, as an NFL starter, outside of the one game where he absolutely torched the New York Jets defense a couple seasons ago. I remember that game. I was not expecting that at all. But anyway, last couple of seasons, everybody likes to talk about Josh Allen, his development, his growth as a young quarterback. Matt Barkley has been Josh Allen's mentor the last couple of seasons. Next up, a true veteran quarterback here, coming in at 36 years old. He's spent time with numerous teams. He's seen tons of NFL defenses. It's Brian Hoyer, and we've actually talked a lot about Hoyer on this channel. Pretty much spent the entirety of his career as that backup guy, but along the way, he's had a couple of opportunities to start. Cleveland with Kyle Shanahan and San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan. Okay, so the system fit is there. He does provide that veteran presence. Much like Nick Mullins, I don't think he'll come in and demand to be the starter. I don't think he's going to try to sabotage Zach Wilson. Not in the least. I do, and by the way, Hoyer has spent the last couple of seasons in New England as the primary backup to Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham. So at this point in Hoyer's career, we're bringing him in for the knowledge. We're bringing him in to be an extension of the coaching staff. And I feel like if you really truly want to give Zach Wilson a mentor quarterback, a guy who has seen a lot, a guy who has been around the block, a guy who's been a starter, been a backup, that's okay being in the backup role, Brian Hoyer is your guy, especially because he's played a couple of seasons in the same exact offense. And last but not least, a little bit of a curveball here. This isn't one that many people are talking about. It's Robert Griffin III. This is a player who might be able to relate to Zach Wilson much better than a Nick Mullins, than a Brian Hoyer, than a Jeff Driscoll. RG3 and Zach Wilson have a ton of similarities. Robert Griffin III has dealt. He knows a thing or two about being the second overall pick and having to be the savior of the franchise, be the guy to turn it around. The entire franchise is revolving around you. You are the center point of the franchise. You're the face of the team. Griffin has been king of the world, winning Rookie of the Year, looking literally unstoppable in 2012 and 2013 under, of course, Mike and Kyle Shanahan. But even though Griffin has had insanely high highs, he's been at the top, right? He has been at the top, like the cream of the crop of the NFL. He's been there with tons of pressure on his shoulders, the weight of the franchise on his shoulders. He's had devastating lows, dealing with injuries, dealing with being benched, dealing with being a scout team safety, dealing with being out of the league, and then coming back and kind of his redemption story, getting back in the league, and for the last couple of seasons being a awesome backup with the Baltimore Ravens, right? And he's had some concerns about him not being so much of a team guy, a team player, kind of being about himself and whatnot. But I feel like at this stage, at 31 years old, you listen to him in interviews and you listen to how the Baltimore Ravens organization, the coaching staff, and his peers talk about Robert. I mean, this guy, he seems like he would be an awesome choice to be Zach Wilson's mentor because both quarterbacks have so many similarities. But going back to that Ravens situation, Robert didn't walk into the Baltimore Ravens quarterback room with some selfish point of view. He came in with an open approach, really trying his best to make Lamar Jackson the franchise quarterback of the team. So just something to think about. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.